The watermelon landrace continues. This entire area is full of watermelons planted this spring. Ezekiel has continued the project. If you've watched this channel over the last few years, you know that I am a fan of the work of Joseph Lofthouse, who wrote the book Landrace Gardening a few years ago and talks about how genetics can adapt to your garden over time, how a lot of our heirloom varieties are actually very, very inbred. And by taking multiple heirlooms, mixing them all together, saving from the survivors, you broaden the genetic pool and then you allow it to readapt to your specific local conditions. And that's what my son Ezekiel has been doing with watermelons since 2021. How many varieties do you think we mixed originally?
It's probably about 25 now, I would imagine.
It's probably about 25 varieties. I'm seeing these Charleston gray type colorings pretty commonly. What do you think these guys are?
Probably Carolina Cross mixed with maybe a Crimson Sweet, or it could just be a straight Crimson Sweet.
There's a lot of watermelons in here.
It's just ready.
It's getting there.
Beautiful though. That looks like a baby Carolina Cross right there.
This one?
Yeah. That looks like a...
And they can get really big. What was the biggest one that we had last
40
time?
pounds.
40 pounds. But they can get bigger than that.
Oh yeah. It might almost be ready.
That's cool.
Beautiful.
This is a big space. This is 150 foot of watermelons, maybe 40 foot wide, something like that. I see ones that are almost black. There are striped ones. We had orange and yellow and red ones in the mix. You added a few new genetics this year to the mix?
Mostly Carolina Cross. I carried over all the other varieties from the last 5 years or so, but Carolina Cross is something that I really wanted integrated, the size of it, the taste of it, into the other watermelons.
Last year we had them in the grocery row gardens, but it was getting a little bit too crowded in there with the trees and they didn't produce as well. So the seeds, instead of going for sale, ended up out here. What's going on there? Fire ants are all around it. Hopefully they're protecting it, not eating it. Protect it from bugs. Look at that.
It's crazy.
To build this plot of watermelons, I tilled a big area up and just tilled grass under. And then after a little bit, when the grass started to regrow, I tilled it again. And then we made some hills, and Ezekiel planted his saved landrace watermelon seeds that he's been saving for the last few years into the hills, but he also added some extra Carolina Cross from a new packet of Carolina Cross seeds in order to bolster those Carolina Cross genetics, as he likes the flavor and he likes the larger melons, so if he can breed them a little bit bigger. Now, he wasn't planning on fertilizing them with anything, just letting them go and letting the genetics decide which are the best suited and which can run with the least amount of resources. However, early in the season, I kept looking at them and it was very droughty out. There was almost no water, and I put a weak liquid fertilizer solution into the hills and I watered them once because I was like, if I could just get a little bit of nutrition in here and a little bit of water, maybe it'll get them to start running. But that was probably not the right choice. It's just hard to watch them suffer. The idea is to breed stronger ones, but I was actually helping them be a little weaker because I was nervous that they weren't running fast enough and it was really dry, so I gave them a weak fertilizer solution. This is pretty exciting. A lot of little watermelons in here. It looks like we're gonna get some big ones. That one's got the Charleston gray coloring.
Yeah.
Looking good.
This one has striped watermelon genetics, but it's hiding it over with probably like some darker watermelon.
Yeah, we had a few darker ones. Some of them were hard to figure out when they were actually ripe. You'd pick them when they looked like they were ripe, and they often were not ripe inside. It was very hard to determine compared to some of the varieties.
This one's ready. If you look at it, down there we have a tendril that comes out on every one of them. When it dries up, it means it's most likely ready. And then if you thump it, very, very, very ripe sounding.
Cool, so that could be our first watermelon.
Wanna pick it?
Yeah, do it.
Low spot.
That looks good. This watermelon was the very first of the year, and it just so happened that we went out to film this little segment and check on the watermelons, and we discovered the first ripe one. So we went in and weighed it, and it came out at 15 pounds. My scale is 1 pound off. And then we cut it open. When we first opened it, I was actually a little bit concerned because it looked like it was more white around the inside, like it wasn't all the way ripe. But when we ate it, it was perfectly ripe, perfectly delicious, mature seeds, and really good. And it's something we've noticed with these land races is that we cross multiple colors, and sometimes there's a more orangey or a yellow with a more red on the inside, or some of them have been pink and some of them have been really pale. And you know, it's always this risk when you open a watermelon, like, is this thing going to be really ripe? But this one was perfectly ripe and perfectly delicious. Had a great crunch to it, a very good flavor, and a very satisfying watermelon to eat, knowing that this has multiple generations of our plant breeding in it and it still tastes good. Joseph Lofthouse started using the term Landrace Gardening, but he has since adopted the term Adaptation Gardening. That is, you're taking genetics and letting them resort to fit your area, your gardening style, how you feed, soil conditions, etc. So it's maybe not technically the description of a landrace that has evolved over time in a geographic region, but you're doing something similar. So adaptation gardening is what he usually calls it now. And this method of taking a bunch of different cultivars of the same species, throwing all the genetics together and letting them resort to create your own heirloom mixed up, you know, and you can select it further from there, but a mixed up crop variety that is more adapted to your area because you're just allowing the pest pressure and everything to select it out for you. It's really useful, and it's been very interesting. So far we have done this with daikon radishes, we have done this with corn. This is our patch of landrace corn. It's unirrigated, it's widely spaced. We got 150-foot rows here. And there's a wide range of corn varieties. It's at least 20 or so varieties that we mixed, and we are letting them cross together. These are grain corn varieties, not sweet corn. And you can see, if we come alongside here, the varying heights are pretty entertaining. We've got corn that's down here. I got corn that's way up there. I got corn that's like 10 feet, something like that. Some of them are making corn, some of them are not. So we save from the ones that do well, and then the ones that don't do well don't reproduce into the mix. So that one's got 2 ears on it. There's some good looking ears in here. These are also not fed very much. I gave them a little bit of cottonseed meal when I planted them, just to get them running, but they don't look nearly so green as the conventionally grown GMO corn that is planted around our area. So a real corn farmer would probably look at this and go, oh man, that's some sad looking corn. But the point is to adjust it to our area and not to treat them very well, to throw a bunch of genetics at the backyard, and then the ones that do well and produce even under adverse conditions, with not being irrigated, with having almost no fertilization, etc. If they still produce and those genetics pass on, we should have more robust corn. So it's more survival corn. We're not going for the highest production possible on this land. We actually don't care that much about the highest production possible. We want the highest survivability, which is what we're trying to breed for. We want a corn that's more like a weed. So far it looks like we're gonna get some corn. It is very poorly fertilized corn in pretty bad soil, and it is making corn, so we're going to save from that and continue to breed it out and then see what we get. Hopefully we get a good harvest of corn this year and the squirrels don't get it. But that landrace idea is just throw a bunch of stuff together, let them cross, save the winners, and then from there just save what you like, what tastes good to you, what looks good to you, and you can create your own heirloom variety over time if you wish, or just allow interesting features to keep cropping up from generation to generation and add new seeds whenever you find that you want to add new seeds, and just enjoy gardening instead of trying to save somebody else's heirloom that may have been bred for 40 years in Idaho, and if you live in Georgia, that may not be well suited to your area. So you're reintroducing a bunch of genetics from other good varieties and then letting it all sort back to your area. It's a really cool concept and it's a lot of fun, and you got a lot of interesting variation. Our other breeding project this year is I'm trying to stabilize a black pumpkin variety that I got from the Caribbean island of Grenada. So we had one black pumpkin last year that we got from the seeds that we planted, and from that we planted all of this. I'm walking into the sun so you can see my shadow, which is very unprofessional for YouTube. Not actually getting a lot of pumpkins in here, but if we can get black pumpkins and they didn't cross too much with my Seminole pumpkins, it'll be interesting. They're kind of a warty, very dark pumpkin. We'll see how these mature out. Here's one. That's lighter than the ones that we planted, but it has the wartiness. There's one. There's one. How do they taste? They were kind of bland, the one we ate last year, but it looked cool, and that's why we saved it. And if we get a better tasting variety in here, that'll be the one to save from. But we're just trying to stabilize the look for now. Can we get that almost black pumpkin again? Black bumpy pumpkin. I don't know. There's a nice big one. Look at this. Cool, huh? At the very least, we get an interesting tropical pumpkin, even if we can't stabilize it with the black coloration. I'll put a link to Joseph Lofthouse's book below. He has a lot of inspiration in there and explains it much better than I do in this video, but he's been very inspiring to Ezekiel and to our own gardening efforts, and our watermelons have been the sweetest results from reading that book and doing the landrace gardening technique. Catch y'all next time, and until then, may your thumbs always be green. Whoa, it made fireworks. Thank you, Apple.